Okay, so we work in Glitch because it makes it really easy to collaborate with people. It's simple, I can do it from anywhere, but there are a couple weird things about Glitch, and we just need to take a video to go over them, talk them through. So the first thing is images. So let's say I want to have an image here, and I'm going to have my src attribute, and I'm a good person, so I'm going to have my alt attribute, and it's a self-closing tag, so I've got my slash. Okay. So what I've told you to do previously is to use a relative link for your images, something like images slash this. And that means that we need to have an images folder here. Glitch basically doesn't like that, and it wants you to store your images in this assets box. And you can upload them here, just drag them in. But what that means is that if we click on these, the URL that it wants you to use is not a relative URL, it's an absolute URL, right? It starts with HTTP, it gives this big, full, kind of nonsense address. So if I copy that and come back and drop it into my image source, we can see that my image does indeed work. But eventually I want this to be a relative link, okay? And definitely what you don't want to do is put this up on your website at your domain and still be pointing to this image on Glitch's servers, because who knows when that image might disappear, okay? You want to be in control, you want to own your images. So at this point, at some point when we're working on Glitch, we are going to download these files onto our computer, and one reason we do that is so that we can use relative links. So if we go to Tools, Import and Export, Download Project, for some reason there's a little turtle by it, it's going to make a zip file of everything in your project. Zip files are just files that combine a bunch of files together. Glitch uses this .tgz file format, which is great if you're on a Mac. You can just open it, use the default program. If you're on a Windows machine, it is a little more difficult. Just Google how to open a .tgz file and go through that process. So I'm going to do that. It's going to unzip. It's always going to unzip into a folder called app. Okay, so the first thing that you want to do is get this folder out of your downloads and rename it something meaningful. So I'm going to call this project 2, and I'm just going to move it onto my desktop really quickly. You would move this into the folder that you use for your course. All right, so I'm going to put that on the desktop and open it up. You might see some files that begin with a dot. Okay, dot files are hidden files. You might not see them depending on how your computer is set up. You don't need them. You can just delete them if they bother you. You can ignore them if they don't. It doesn't matter. All right, so now let's take this folder and let's drag it down into our text editor so that we can begin working. All right, so index.html, I've got my image. What I'll need to do now is I'll need to create an images folder, and I'll need to put my images there just like we did in our previous example. So I can do new folder, image, I can go into Finder, and I can move these around. So previously when we were working, I had 2 images here. I'm going to Apple C and Apple V to paste them here. And now I'm going to want to replace this with a relative link. So take a second. In my images folder, how would I link to raccoon1.jpg? And yes, I would say go into my images folder, find raccoon1.jpeg, save that. And now from project 2, if I pull index.html, I'm good. Okay, so that's downloading from Glitch. You want to do this when you're ready to maybe stop working with other people, when you're ready to kind of finish up your site. If you have a lot of images, you don't want to get too far because it is kind of a pain to replace them, but that is just the way it is. One final note on images that I forgot to include in the previous videos. Do not do this ever, 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 please, ever. Do not put the height or the width on the image. Do not type style equals da-da-da and give it a height and a width. Remember that when we're writing HTML, we are not caring about how the page looks. Okay, we will set the width of images with CSS eventually, but for right now, do not put that on the image tag, okay? It'll mess you up later. So just remember it. I'm going to repeat it again because it's very important. Do not put height and width on images in HTML. Okay.